And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Dr. Renata Bartoli. Dr. Bartoli had a near-death experience where she teleported from place to place, and today we're going to learn about it. Dr. Bartoli, thank you so much for joining us and welcome.
Thank you very much.
My audience loves to hear about near-death experiences, so if you don't mind, can we start on the day yours happened?
Yes. Well, I have to say a little about the background when it happened, because it's relevant. It happened on the 16th of December 1998. It's a long time ago. I had moved to London, to England, the year before, coming from a year and a half in China, where I taught in a university in Shanghai. It was very stressful. And I left without, quite quickly. It hadn't been planned. So the first time I thought of coming here with a job, but when instead I had to find it. So the first year was very stressful. And also I had a relationship that was breaking up. So it was an unpleasant time. First I lived in a flat, then I moved and I bought my house and I started remaking it. And I did little by little while I got the job in teaching in colleges. And in December, I was on a second phase of renovating the house. And that evening, I decided to go to buy tiles. And I miscalculated the distance of the shop. I went on foot. And it was much farther than I thought. And when I came home, I had 2 trolleys, those where you put the shopping, and each one had the tiles. The tiles were heavy and small, so the trolleys were all bending. I was tired, and holding both trolleys with my hands, one trolley hit my foot and I fell on the ground. Holding the trolleys, I was not able to protect myself, and I went down in this way, hitting my forehead. I don't remember hitting the floor. There is a blank, and then I will say about the blank later. When I came back conscious, I was on the floor, on the ground. It was something like 6-7 o'clock in the evening. And the road was a road connecting two different, it was not a city road, and very large pavement. And 2 young men were walking towards me, something like 10 meters from me. And I inferred that I was unconscious on the ground for a very short time, because they didn't rush. I suppose that if I had been there for a while, they would have been worried and rushed. So they just, when they arrived near me, they asked me if I was all right. I said, yes. My worry was to find my glasses that were in front of me, hoping they were not broken. They were not. And then I got up. My wrists were very badly hurt. The pain was very strong. I felt confused. I started walking home. I was worried because I touched my nose and there was blood. So I didn't know if I had all the blood on my face or what. I had the feeling that I was forgetting something, but obviously I didn't know what it was. And I managed to walk home, always in this state of bit of light confusion. I rang my neighbor. They were not helpful. They didn't offer to help me anything. Anyway, I went in. And I had two young cats, a year old approximately. And the only thing I remember of that evening, that it took me something like half an hour to open a tin of cat food because my wrists were so damaged. And then I went to bed, and I had a lot of pain. I slept and woke up many times, always thinking there was something weird in my head, something missing. When finally on the following morning I woke up, I remembered. I said, oh, I had a near-death experience here. This is the thing that was missing. And because I had a near-death experience 20 years before, of a very different nature, I had read about that. And I read it because I have always had sort of strange experiences in my life. So I started reading. Therefore, I was I was able to understand what happened and analyze it, and was quite curious because, first of all, because I had work to do at home, a few days later, I was with some workmen, and we had to go to buy something, and they took me in their van, and the van passed in the place where I fell over. And while I was speaking to them, automatically my mind saw the pavement and thought, oh, that is where I died. And then said, what? So things were coming together. Now, what my near-death experience is divided into two parts. The first part is in the so-called tunnel. The tunnel was a bit more complicated. But the most important thing is that the time didn't exist. I am forced in this dimension to explain chronologically what happened before and what happened afterwards. But I've never known. It seemed they were all things present at the same time. So I shall try as much as I can. I was sitting, and there are a lot of things that are contradictory. I was sitting on a bench made of stone. The stone looked like coal, I would say, black, rough, but a bit translucent. And it was the wall, and then it created the bench and come down in this way. It was all carved in it. And this was a sort of alcove that was in this way, this and this. And I was sitting here. The entrance was on this side. The fact is, yes, it looked like coal, rough coal, but at the same time, it also looked like candy floss, black candy floss, or something like clouds. So it was very physical and non-physical at all. Another strange thing is that it was the absolute darkness. However, I could see what the stone was. This is another contradiction. The total darkness is something we can't experience on the surface of the earth. But once I went to visit a cave when I was young, and when we were inside, completely inside, the guide turned off the light, and I saw what the absolute darkness was. And it's something that is different. And this is what was there. But at the same time, I was seeing things. Not only that, but I was not surprised to be there. My mind was going on in a strange way. I couldn't, if you find yourself in a place that you don't know, completely dark, alone, you should at least be surprised. Well, I was just sitting there. At some point, I thought, am I dead? Very slowly, And I had an answer in my mind. And here again, who was answering me? I suppose it was a spirit, but I can't exclude 100% that it was not my higher self or whatever. Certainly, I had the feeling it was a male voice. It was very calm, very not shrill, very calm in all senses, and very loving. I felt a lot of love, and also a point of amusement in this voice. And the voice said, no, you are not dead, but when it will happen, you will come back here. I said, all right. And I continued to stay there. And then at some point, I thought, what is going on? And I told myself, if I were dead, what would I leave unfinished on earth? I didn't have the life review, but I did the review of the future. If I were dead now, what do I leave incomplete? Now, first things that I thought of the person I was breaking up. And it had been a very long process and very painful. So at that moment, I knew he was in France. And so I wondered, will he know that I've died? And I shall never see him again. And every time I had the same answer. I don't know who gave me the answer. I don't know if it was me or if it was that voice that I heard before. The answer was, it's irrelevant. And with the addition, what can mean a life, incarnated life, a handful of years is nothing. It's irrelevant. Okay, well, all right. Then I thought of my cats, who were the most important people of my life. And I had the total responsibility for them. So it was really a question of responsibility even before love. And I thought, yes, my friend will look after them. However, I don't know how things will go. And again, it's irrelevant. It's a handful of years. Why do you worry? And then I thought, I am very possessive of my things. I am an only child, so I don't like people sticking their hands in my stuff. And I said, oh my God, I haven't sorted out anything at home. And they will come, and strangers will check everything I have. And there was a sort of a funny contempt. Say, but they are incarnated. Why should you worry about that? They can't understand anything. It's irrelevant. Now, that is strange because years later, I read the book of Anita Moorjani, and she uses the same word. When she is on the other side, she mentioned that she found everything irrelevant. I said, oh, there is the word that comes up. And so it was in this way, and it was, and it continues to be even today, something very present in my mind, which I can't accept being incarnated, because to me they are not irrelevant. I have 2 cats now, and certainly it's not irrelevant what will happen to them. But I also know that from the other side, it's right to be in this way because we are playing a game here. And so we needed to go with the rules. And the rules on earth is that is not irrelevant. But I know that behind, when you go from above, that is irrelevant. Anyway, at some point, I found myself sitting, instead of, as I said, it was something like this. You go inside in this way. I was sitting here. I found myself here. And I turned on the left, I looked down, and it was like those spotlights in theaters. It was like a hole. I saw myself on the floor of the pavement. And I didn't like that body there in that way. It seemed to be very alien to me and not very nice. There were also two other characteristics. The light was not as bright as it was in physical reality. And it was 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon. There was a lot of traffic of cars coming and going with the lights and the sounds, while instead it was extremely quiet. These are the two differences between what was there. I was very detached, and I just turned. I didn't like to look and turn my head away. I didn't want to see. I really didn't want to know about that body there. And I found myself suddenly in the corridor, standing, facing the exit, even if I didn't know there was an exit. Somehow I knew then there was a dot of light, but I looked and I didn't see anything. And I stayed there for a while. The light became a tiny bit, and then it became slightly larger and larger and brighter. Not so bright, but at least it was not absolute darkness. And suddenly I found myself at the entrance of the cave. Again, there was no movement at all. I was there. The cave was just behind me. On the left, I had, I don't know, a spirit guide, a guide, some sort of guide. I couldn't look at him. I couldn't turn my head. I didn't know who he was, but I knew he was a male figure again. And in front of me, there was a beautiful landscape, very green with grass, going down on the right with a few trees here and there, and very colored people in small groups sitting around, a bit like picnics. I can't describe the clothes. I know they were very colored, but I have no idea what style. It was like a picnic, but I didn't see any food. On the left, the field was going up like on a hill, and at the top there was a wall. I saw in a distance a bit a wall, and that wall disturbed me a bit. I knew it was the external wall of a cemetery in the countryside. In reality, there was a wood in front where I went to the countryside with my grandmother when I was a child. And in that cemetery, there was the grave of the daughter of one of her sisters, who was my grandaunt, that was the closest person I had. And the daughter was born in 1942 when they were bombing the town. And she was born 6 months only. She was incomplete. The palate was not complete. And she died after 50 hours. And I had, when my grandmother took me there every year, I had a strange paranormal experiences in that place. And later on, many years later, after the NDE, I came to understand that probably I was incarnated in that child, wanted to sort out heavy karma with my parents. But then the child died, so I had to be reincarnated as their own child, making things more difficult. This is interesting because it shows that from the spiritual point of view, bodies, we are very keen about our bodies, rightly, but from the spiritual point of view, bodies are, how can I say, like a cars. When it's broken, you change it. I was supposed to be born in this child. The palate didn't work so well. I tried with another one, and I think this gives support to people who lose, for example, their babies or their children. I had clients doing past life regression that told me the same things. They were reincarnated in a body, but they didn't want to live there, and so they left. And I think of the poor mother who saw the child 2 months old dying. Actually, the spirit just didn't want that body, didn't want that life. So that was interesting, and didn't last very long. There was also a fig tree that, again, I can't remember. But in this life, I know when I was a child, my grandmother spoke of a fig tree and that was connected with that place. But the fig tree was there. But I can't say what in this life that meant to me. However, at some point, the spirit speaking to me was much more subtle, the conversation. While in the cave, I really heard a voice in my mind, amused as well. But in this at this point, it was not a voice; it was just a knowing. And he told me that there was knowledge beyond. The field that went up on the left continues on the right, so it blocked what there was beyond. And it somehow told me, I learned that beyond there were people who could teach me a lot. And suddenly I wanted to know. I wanted absolutely to know. And I was there. Again, no movement. I was there in front. There was a sort of campfire with 4 or 5 old men sitting around. And I said to them, to one in particular, I want to know the secrets of the universe. And beyond them, there was a valley that was going higher and narrower and narrower. And I knew that at the end of the valley, there was another campfire like this one. Curiously, many years later, when I read the Silmarillion by Tolkien, a description of a hidden city, the description of the valley made me really think of what I saw there. So I always combine the 2 images. Anyway, they told me the story, the secrets of the universe. And I started laughing because I found them extremely simple. And I said, I can't believe in all human history, we have never understood these things. You can teach them in a primary school. Why no one knows this? I was so amused and so amazed. And this old man told me, but this is nothing. Those over there know infinitely more. I said, I want to go there. I said, no, you can't go beyond this. Now you have to go back. And when you're back, you won't be able to remember anything of what we have told you. That is not a great help. Anyway, I think that since we come and go, I already knew them. It's just that when we are incarnated, we don't know. And suddenly, bang, I was on the floor, on the paving, and looking for my glasses, and with a lot of pain in my wrist, and so that was it. But I found, I tell this story now, how long it is, 20 years or more, 22 years. It is as it was when I remember on the following day. And it's curious that when I was in the van with the corner of my eye to look where we were, I said, oh yes, that is where I died. It's quite surprising.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I want to kind of go back and see if I can clear things up for me. You didn't remember it until the next morning when you were driving in the van, or a passenger in the van, correct?
Yeah, the van came a few days later. I remember the experience when I woke up in the following morning. Yeah.
You were awake consciously and it just all of a sudden hit you, and didn't you just sat there in bed or sat there at the breakfast table and started reliving all of this again?
Yeah. The feeling was, there is something I don't remember. There is something important I don't remember. I don't remember. Why I don't remember? I was obsessed with these things hanging in my head. And when I opened it, as I said, I had a very bad night, obviously, because of the pain. But when towards the morning, it was already light. I said, now I remember what it was. Finally, now I remember. And it was all clear as it is now. Nothing has changed. If it's a dream, you forget. Even the best dreams, you forget. Sometimes you forget a few seconds after you remember them. But that was really carved there. And I have to add another thing. Some decades ago, I lost the most important person in my life. And it was something like 15 years before the MD. And I've never, let us say, recovered. I had a communication with him after he died, but because of how things happen, it's been particularly awful. And I was and I remain very sad that I didn't meet him during my ND. People say they meet relatives or loved people. And I didn't even think of him when I was there. And I feel even guilty for this, unless it was one of these voices that I was hearing and speaking to me, because actually the way of speaking was very similar to his voice. But it's very strange. I just hope when I go there for good, that he will be there to meet me. But certainly, if I invented, I would have put him first things. You know, I suppose that if I saw him, I wouldn't have wanted to come back for any reason in the world. So even for my cats, I wouldn't have come back. So maybe that is the thing. But certainly it was a very altered state, but at the same time, full consciousness, more conscious than normally we are.
Well, you said it was a male voice. Is it possible that it could have been him?
It could be. There are two characters, if you want. I don't know. The one in the cave where I heard the voice, and as I said, it could have been somehow his voice. And the other outside, that was not even a voice. It was less than a thought. It was like being me, myself. And I don't know in what language he spoke either. I don't know if it was Italian, French, English. I don't know. One of the three.
Do you think it's more real over there during your experience than it is here?
Yes. And there was this strong, in the first part, when I was referring to the experience on Earth, there was really, I know contempt is not a nice word, but it means that, really. I had no consideration for the ability, the thinking ability of us when we are incarnated. It's like if you wanted to discuss some, I don't know, very specialized subject with a 5 years old. it's the same things, Say, yeah, why do you care about it? They think they put their hands in your stuff. Why do you care? It's all irrelevant. It's they don't know what they decide, what they think. It's quite childish, if you want.
So do you feel like it's if the voice is telling you, why do you care about your life on earth? It's just some silly game.
I don't know. I don't know if that irrelevant came from a part of me, because after all, I was revising this situation. I was making an exercise to understand if I were dead. And I think that was my thought. If I'm dead, what would I leave? If I were dead, what would I leave unfinished? And there was this analysis that is like a life review, but in the future instead of the past. I suppose there was input from the other voice that I heard, but it's very confusing. Everything was one somehow. So I can't exclude it was my higher self, but certainly there was a sense of male voice, male presence.
I don't understand why you think it was your higher self, because do you feel like you were talking to yourself and answering yourself?
It was not talking, it was thinking.
Well, yeah.
I want to consider all the possibilities. I can't exclude. I don't think it was me, but I can't exclude the possibility that it was my higher self, because we don't know our higher self well enough. The higher self, and there are also very different interpretations of these words. The higher self is on the other side. And the rules on the other side are very different. And things that we consider terrible on earth, on the other side is taken like, just we have a joke. I incarnate myself having these terrible experiences. So I shall have a laugh when I come back. Things like this. So I'm a bit wary, of the point of view on the other side. It works on the other side, but we have to keep the two things separate. And I appreciate that, well knowing that the bodies are just like car, you take them, you leave them, you are always on the other side. I had my personal experiences of communicating with this person on the other side. When that is a typical example. When he died, I saw his body, and I was, I think, at the absolute bottom of myself. And suddenly I heard from behind my head, higher, from the ceiling, his comment that was very amused and happy. So they are two different worlds, but the suffering of the loss, for example, that we experience on this side, unfortunately remains. It's comforting to know that is irrelevant in the great scheme of things. But while we are in these chains, in these flesh chains, it can be heavy sometimes.
Now, you're a hypnotherapist. I would assume you've got to have some colleagues that are friends that are also hypnotherapists. Have you ever had them regress you to see if you can remember what the secrets of the universe are?
No, not that exactly, but I had some people going in future lives and telling me very weird things. Also, for example, and this has happened even for very, very far past and very far future, they had semi-translucent bodies that were physical and non-physical at the same time. And I think really it's very complex, very, very complex. And it's so varied. there are states of which we know nothing at all. And when there were these semi-physical, translucent bodies, they had anyway a life on Earth. They didn't describe that to be on another, Then we do the interlife explorations where the person is not in a body but is spirit, and that becomes even more complex, varied, because it's very flexible. It's like wax, soft wax. And so, yeah.
Have you ever regressed anybody and they told you they were from another planet?
I've never regretted.
Have you ever had a hypnotherapy session with somebody and the person said they're from another planet?
Oh, yes, I had. And in one case, it was also very funny. I consider things that the people are not happy with more relevant than those they are happy with, because if they are happy with, it could be their wishful thinking. But once I had, before COVID, I ran workshops, and I had a group of people who came together, and they were very, very snobbish. It's the only case that I had been difficult dealing with them. And we did this regression, and there was this lady who was extremely snobbish. And she was very, very unhappy that she saw herself in the future like a huge green lizard walking on her back feet. And she was really, really unhappy. So that seems to me more likely than something else. But people have told me story of being incarnated in animals, for example, and not the usual cats and dogs. In one case, it was a camel. And it was meaningful for the experience the camel had and the man has nowadays.
So you're saying that...
So we are all spirit. The spirit can take any form. And the spirit, our personal spirit, is much, much bigger than what can incarnate in a physical body. Whatever the species. So there can be, if there are bodies enough, cars enough, have parallel lives. However, I don't think we ever meet, because spiritually speaking, meeting yourself is useless.
So you're saying that besides taking human bodies, sometimes people take animals for their bodies as well. Dogs, cats, camel.
Yes, and in other dimensions as well, in another world. Yeah, I had a friend, an American friend who lives here, and who has always been very interested in space traveling and all these things. And I said, let us do a regression and see if you have had lives not on Earth. And he had 3 descriptions, going from a sort of crab, not on this planet, semi-conscious, extremely simple crab, to an animal shaped, non-human shaped individual who was conscious, and another one who was humanoid, looking like more or less human. And the spirit can break to fit if you think of the brain like a computer, the brain has a certain capacity. If you put too much inside in a computer, it gets stuck. It can't do anything. And that's the same. So you can put only something enough to make the machine work. And all the rest is free to do whatever it wants. And anyway, we can incarnate in many different places. So
Is that why you think we have a higher self, because we can't put all of us into the brain?
I don't know about this higher self. You see it always quoted. I think all these distinctions are very typically human incarnated mentality, rationality, putting names, numbers, and so on. I think it's much more plastic. It's all attached to the other. It's all one part and the other. I suppose that a part of us that we can call the higher self is the part that stays, that never incarnate. We never incarnate completely. Otherwise, it would be probably, I don't know, difficult to go back. But that's all.
Why do you think we even incarnate in the first place? Just to come play a game, or what?
Because it's funny. To one can say from the other side, oh, well, I want to have experiences. Is to have experiences. But some can say, oh, well, next time I reincarnate paraplegic. And so I have this beautiful experience, how I can manage. From the conscious, from the incarnated point of view, one says, oh my God. But from the other side, it's just a joke. And they wonder if I was drunk when I planned my life. Oh yeah, let us put this and also this and also that. Let us have fun. So I don't, for the little that I have seen and experienced, I don't think there is any way to understand why we make certain choices, but it makes sense on the other side. And we know also as incarnated that unfortunately we learn much more from negative experiences than from the good ones. They say happiness, you don't tell happiness, you just leave it and that's it. But you experience, your experiences, the negative, the painful ones, are those who make you grow.
And why is that?
No idea. I know that we know very, very little.
And then also, if we already are over there, why do we need to grow?
If the spirits are eternal, they have to spend, and they have a lot of time on their head. They have to do something. So the game is, I already know everything, but now I wanted to limit myself not to know and see how I can regain that. If you have the eternity to deal with, you can't play Scrabble all life, all time. I don't know. Maybe doing some investigation with some good medium, but it's a tricky thing, because again, you even leaving alone those who get it wrong, but you can have 10 different answers and all the 10 answers being correct. It's infinitely plastic, it's infinitely malleable. So it's not the same for everyone. There are two very good books of a German writer who lives in England, Jürgen Siever. I don't know if you know him. He does lucid dreaming. And he seems to be very honest. And he describes these experiences that he has. And the situations, the places, even keeping only the good ones, because not all the spiritual world is full of fluffy angels. There are places where you don't want to go. You try to avoid them, and he visited. But is really very different. Each one sees the things as they want. And it depends how, from what I understand, the more evolved spiritually you are, the less physical you see the afterlife. But the average person, after a life, an incarnated life, goes into a state that is somehow similar to the physical life. And when we meet spirits, dear ones, they have to take a body to show something that you can recognize them. Because if there is just a cloud that says, I am your aunt so-and-so, you say, well, how can I know? Well, if she shows her face, you say, oh, yes, it's my aunt. Because we are a visual species. So,
some of my guests have experienced a hell-like NDE. Do you think it's possible that when we're down here playing the game that we could get so mixed up and in bad shape that when we go back, we're still in bad shape and we see a hellish-like world until we finally kind of sort it all out and realize, okay, everything's okay?
I don't know. Fears can play a big role. In my first near-death experience was by proxy. Was the sister, 18 years old sister of my boyfriend who died. She was in hospital after a car crash, and she visited me 800 kilometers from where she was. And she wanted to take me with her. She was scared, and it was not hellish, but it was very, very bad. But there are other situations where energy is energy. We call good or bad. That is our interpretation. Let us say what we call good is faster, hotter, and brighter. And the bad one is cooler, slower, and darker. Obviously, we go to the same level of energy that we were in life. And some people who have committed awful things, they don't go in what we call heaven. They don't go in a good place. And I can give an example, which is very disturbing. A quick example. I was taken to visit, against my will, the grave of a relative who had just died. And he had been an awful man to me in particular, harming me very badly. And when I was on the grave, it was still fresh. There was only the number of the grave there. And while I was there, I heard very clear his voice in my mind saying, that was in Italian, translated was, you think you freed yourself from me, but I shall hit you once more, and I will take away the dearest person you have. And I was a bit shocked. I put my eyes down and I saw the number. And the number of the grave were the 2 digits of the date of birth of the dearest person I had. This was the beginning of August. And in autumn, this person discovered to have a terminal cancer and died a few months later. I don't believe that the spirit was able to do that, but I believe that he knew the future and he used it against me. So that's it. This makes you think. It's not that when you die you become an angel. You remain who you are. And I can't say anything else. I don't know. I don't know more. But certainly that was a very, very tough experience. At that time, no one knew that that person was ill. It was discovered by chance at the end of November, and he died in Italy. And I didn't meet him when I was in my MD.
You didn't meet him?
I don't know. As far as I know, no. But maybe it was the voice that was speaking to me. Who knows?
Are you saying that the guy that did terrible things to you, after he died, he reincarnated to be the guy that you were romantically involved with?
No, because it was no, absolutely no. It's just that he wanted it to be unpleasant. Let us say to hit me. No, because the other was no. They have nothing in common. Absolutely no.
Okay.
It's just that he wanted to hit me somehow, and this proves that the fact of dying doesn't make you change drastically from what you were before. The energy, the negative energy, goes with the same. And Jürgen Siever is very clear on this with his experience. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's
okay.
It's right, because with all the films of Hollywood of these frightening dead, it's good to speak of the positive side, but we must not forget that it's not all that. And I had people regressed, went to places they were very, very unpleasant, and it was disturbing for me to guide them away from that.
All right. Well, I've got to switch gears with you because I'm running out of time. You are the head of the IONS chapter in London. Do you have a website? Do you have anything with them or anything else of your own you would like to promote?
I have two websites of mine, and one is for general hypnotherapy, the Apple Tree hypnotherapy, and the other is Footprints from the Past. And there is a page dedicated to the near-death experiences and the group that we organize, hoping that this COVID at some point will disappear, and we shall be able to. I don't do Zoom meetings because one thing, as we do today, is one-to-one after all. But having a group and having the various little faces that speak is not the same things. The synergetic effect is being together and share things. And I see in the workshops that I've done many, is something you can't do on the internet.
Do you want to tell us what your websites are?
Yes, www.footprints from the past, all in one word, footprints plural, footprintsfromthepast.co.uk.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how can they contact you?
On my website, there is an email address, which is like the website, info@footprintsfromthepast.co.uk. If they write there, the email is automatically forwarded to my personal email address, and I will reply from that. It's just that I don't want to put my personal email address on the website, because if it goes public, spam and so on, it's terrible. So they can write to that, and I reply from my personal email address.
Well, before we finish up, can you give us one last positive message?
It's all these things that have happened to me in my life, which I've investigated, researched, but like mediumship and so on. I am revising now my notes of 35 years ago, and I can really see myself from a distance, and I can understand in a very different way what happened. And to me, at the moment, that is the most important things, which is connected with the person who died, but is also connected with my life. And really, it's amazing at the distance of 35 years, how differently, how detached you are reading the things, how you can understand better. And to me, at the moment, that is the most important things. And I want to start again studying mediumship, which I did for a very short time before going to China. I'm a very logical, so I block a lot. And so I think, and I don't trust myself. So I wanted to work on that, getting more confidence in that, and see what can come up. And anyway, I'm nearly 70, so I've done my duty for most of the time. And once I have completed my responsibilities that are not irrelevant to me, I'm ready to go home.
Well, you got to take care of your cats before you go.
Exactly, I know. This is one of the two important things. And the other is also connected with animal rights. And having been vegan for 22 years and before 15 years of vegetarianism, I'm very, very committed. So there are things that I needed to, practical things to organize. And yes, but hopefully, you know, I'm certainly not scared to go on the other side. I just hope not to get the wrong road, you know, the wrong path. I hope someone will be there. My cats will certainly be there, the one who are gone, and I'm sure they will come to meet me and guide me. And if there is also the gentleman, I would be very pleased to meet him again.
Yes. All right, Dr. Bartoli, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you very much. Thanks to you for having had the patience to listen to me. And all the best. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.